He teaches and inspires people in a creative and mindful way about performance and well-being. So without further ado, I welcome Roy.
Good morning, everyone. It was amazing as I walked through the door at 8:30 in the morning to feel so much energy. It's incredible. You guys are great. Thank you very much, Gemma, for the introduction. And I'd like to thank Creative Mornings for the opportunity to speak to you today. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce to you a concept I call mindful creativity and how that can support the education system here in Hong Kong and probably in Asia, if not other places. So many of you have probably familiar with this fellow, Ken Robertson, and he did a very famous talk a number of years ago where he more or less dissed the education system, said that education is based on a manufacturing model and that we're basically doing a cookie cutter type of process with students. And he said as a result of that, creativity has suffered tremendously within education. So one of the roles that I have in life is to find ways, solutions to Ken Robinson's problem. So that involves helping people to become more creative, no matter where they are on the creative spectrum. This is a little bit, okay, I'm getting a bit of an echo. And the other thing is to help educators to find ways to implement creativity within the education system. There's the biggest challenge. Why is creativity not so much into education? There's a reason for that. A number of universities in the East Coast of the United States did a study a little while ago, and they discovered that human beings have a love-hate relationship with creativity. The love is, everybody thinks that creativity is a great idea. Creativity should be in organizations, creativity should be in education. You know, our children should be more creative and so forth. The hate part is that at a deeper level, people fear creativity. They fear creativity because they fear change. Part of the hate is not just dealing with, but I'm sure many of you who are very creative people working in industry have faced the situation where you've come up with some ideas, and those that are not so creative in the organization don't know what to do with it, and they have to make decisions on which idea is the best idea, so they don't particularly like that too much. And it makes it a little bit more difficult sometimes to get creativity even into organizations. That's one of the things that the School of Design has been focusing on, is how to get creativity more within businesses. So we have this type of love-hate relationship. Now, in terms of actually educating people in creativity, there are two approaches. Most people only know of one approach. And the approach is what you see here. In education, you teach people lateral thinking, mind mapping, and so forth. I call this a structural approach. Now, the structural approach is a good approach in many ways. It does get results. But what I've done is I tried to look more deeply into this structural approach and find out what the core elements are. And as a result of that, I've been able to develop a number of strategies to help people become more creative. And one of those strategies basically can take people from zero creativity, never had a creative thought in their lives, to generating very valuable ideas, even up to the level of multi-million-dollar ideas in less than 3 hours. Okay? But that's using strategy, using the brain, how the brain functions. Now, the other side of teaching creativity is, if you ask the question, how many creative people actually use these tools? Now, you may have learned it in school, but, you know, I just create. You know, it's intuitive. It just comes to me. You know? So how do you address that? How do you help people to develop that capability that many of you here in the room have? So that is what I call mindful creativity. And it's a non-structured approach. So one of the things I feel about education is we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. Now, education today focuses a lot in Hong Kong, focuses a lot on knowledge acquisition, a little bit of critical thinking, some creativity in the arts, but social emotional competence and sense of well-being in students is not really addressed so well within the education system. But there's the horse. The horse is what drives all of this. So what is the horse? The horse actually operates at a very deep level, and most of us pay no attention to it. And that is three qualities: awareness, attention, and reward. Now, what happens in education is we focus a lot on this, and we expect that awareness, attention, and reward are sort of like collateral damage of the education system. But actually, ancient Eastern traditions focus more on awareness, attention, and reward in terms of developing human potential. So this is basically what I've discovered, and I'm going to go a little bit more into this in a minute. So one of the exercises that I give students that are just coming out of high school in a creativity course is I say to them, okay, I want you to answer the question, who am I? And I want you to answer it in one photograph. The photograph can't have any people in it, and it can't be a composite. And then you have to put a little bit of a description to it. Now, who am I? The reason I do that is because we know a lot about ourselves. We may not know a lot about physics or biology or IT or whatever, but we know a fair amount about this. But it's a complex problem. So here's some of the things that the students come up with. All right. So you can see from this example that this particular girl, not only has she come up with something that's creative, but she's come up with something that actually has quite a bit of meaning to it. In other words, she's thinking at a deeper level. Now remember, these students are coming out of schools where rote memorization is the key thing. And they're not all designers. I'm talking about students from business, engineering, all different disciplines. Here's another one that comes up. Now, I showed this to a number of Buddhist monks, and they were rather stunned by this, because in Buddhism, you focus on the lotus flower. Whoever thinks of the leaves? All right? That the leaves have any value. So here's a person that's defined his entire life, who am I, by what the leaves can do. So once again, thinking at a deeper level. And this is not uncommon. These are not exceptional examples. I have many, many examples like this from students. Okay, we'll get into a reward first. Our brain is rather amazing. I work in the field of neuropsychology as well, so our brain is rather amazing. We have about 1 billion neurons, but actually the number of associations that our neurons can make is 10 to the 1 millionth power. To give you an idea how big that number is, if you take all the subatomic particles in this universe, you only get 10 to the 80 power. So that's about as close to infinity as you can imagine. Now, why would somebody want to tap into all those associations? You know, human beings have a particular quality, and that is we like to put in the minimal amount of effort to get the maximum output. So why would you put so much energy into making all these associations? Obviously, these associations have a lot to do with our creative ability, as well as other abilities. So one of the reasons is curiosity. Curiosity is a very, very important driver. So curiosity is about caring. You can't be curious about anything, even things you don't like, unless you care about it in some way or another, right? So this type of caring ability is very, very important for students to develop. Now, curiosity also doesn't really have too much limitation, because to be curious, you have to kind of venture into unknown territory. It means you have to take a little bit of risk, which means fundamentally you're not too fond of limitations. Okay, so curiosity is an important aspect of actually motivating people to utilize their brains more. All right, another one has to do with the type of motivation. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look at these two columns and select three of these that you feel is the most important for you in terms of motivation for your job. Okay, depending on what you selected, there are two types of motivation. Over here on the black side is external motivation. In other words, you're motivated by things that are happening outside of you. outside influences. Here is internal motivation. In other words, the motivation comes from inside. Creative people are motivated internally. There's plenty of research on that. So if most of your answers are over here, there is a possibility that you're not as creative as you could be in your job. Now, there's a way around that. There's a way around it. And how people get around that is they have hobbies. My job sucks, but I'm going to do something fun and interesting outside. But imagine if you could bring, sort of this internal motivation into the work that you do. All right. So this is the education system in Hong Kong. Math, physics, design, politics, and so forth. They're all little cubby holes, and students are put into these cubby holes, and that's what they have to focus on, presumably for the rest of their lives. So now there are some schools that are allowing interdisciplinary work between different subjects, a little bit more and more in Asia, but more so in the West. Now, we have choices. We have choices to either go into one particular box, but creative people, first of all, they try to learn more curiosity about different types of domains, and then they don't actually select one box, they can mix them together. All right, so actually, creativity is the desire to overcome limitation. All right, so that's part of the motivation. For me personally, I prefer to be the bird that's flying in the forest. Attention. What do you see in this picture? Huh? You see beauty, you see trees, you see lake. Anybody see anything unusual? Reflections. Come on, guys. Muster up, huh? A shape of a dinosaur. Well, this is going to be embarrassing. This is going to be embarrassing, but here's your dinosaur. It's a woman's face. Okay, so some people are able to pick out subtle patterns within a field of information. Other people aren't. And actually, creative people have the ability, more creative people, here is visual creativity, to pick out more subtle patterns than most people. The research indicates that. I have other ideas about people that kind of look at the big picture, but I'm not going to go into that here today. But anyway, this has to do with your mental capacity to filter information and to make information associations. So you see this spinning girl, you've probably seen this before on the internet. For some of you, she's spinning clockwise. For some of you, she's spinning counterclockwise. So regardless of how she's spinning, see if you can get her to spin in the opposite direction. Just using your head. Okay, if you're having difficulty, then one of the things you can do is you can focus up in the upper right-hand corner of this gray area. Really focus your attention there strongly and put the girl in your peripheral vision, and then see if you can get her to switch. Oh, it works. Now, if you're having difficulty with this, you can try again. So the interesting thing about this is the way our brain is processing visual information. We have a specific way of processing information, not only in visuals, but in all different ways within our brains. So how do you get out of this sort of patterning? You get out of this patterning by putting your car in neutral gear. All right, so neutral gear, what I'm calling neutral gear at the moment, allows you to do many, many things. So it allows you to take multiple perspectives. So the Roman god Janus, multiple perspectives. Brahma, the creator, also is a four-faced Buddha taking multiple perspectives. Now, the capacity to free your mind from all these constraints frees your imagination, which is really, really important for creativity. So very naturally, very creative people know how to get into neutral gear. They don't know they're doing that, but they know how to do it. So the missing key to all of this, to creativity, critical thinking, self-reflection, and self-learning, is something called metacognition. Metacognition, you've probably heard of it. It's thinking about thinking. So it's the ability to observe and regulate your thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Metacognition is a form of attention, higher order attention, but it goes even higher than that. So we get into the next one here, which is awareness. We'll try another little exercise. While you're sitting here in the room, focus on the sounds in the room and focus on your body. You know, what your clothes feel like, whether you're hot, whether you're cold, whether your muscles are tight or loose. Just focus for a few seconds on sounds in the room and bodily sensations. Okay, now as quickly as possible, multiply 37 times 12 in your head. No calculators. 37 times 12, so you can come up with an answer. Come on, guys, you've had 5 seconds. Huh? 444. All right, good. The purpose of it is not to test your mathematical skills. The purpose of this is for you to realize what happens when you start doing that mathematical calculation in your head to your sense of body and the sounds in the room. Gone. How many people, raise your hand if it was gone? Or pretty much. Most people. So that's a funny thing about human beings is there's an inverse relationship, means like a seesaw, between our thoughts and awareness. So the more thoughts we have, the less awareness we have. Whoops. The more awareness we have, the less thoughts we have. So imagine the education system where you're taught from childhood, think, and think again. And then you go into a job and you think again. And you get into relationships with people and you think again because that's what you know what to do. All right? So what happens to your awareness? Awareness goes down. Now awareness is really, really important in creativity because if you cannot connect with the world, how can you connect here in your head? Okay? So it's really, really important to develop this capacity to increase our awareness, which means becoming more centrally aware of what's happening in our sight, sounds, taste, touch, and so forth. Not throwing out thoughts. Not throwing out thoughts. Thoughts will still be there, but to increase your awareness. So the way to do that, one of the ways to do that, is called mindfulness. How many of you have heard of mindfulness before? Okay, everybody said, oh, this is going to be fun. All right, mindfulness. Or living in the now. You've heard of living in the now, right? What does it mean to live in the now? People go, duh, isn't that what I do? All human beings, we live in the now. You can't live any other place, right? There's no time travel here. So anyway, living in the now, yes, our minds might be focused on the past or more on the future and not actually being aware of what's happening in the moment. So that's normally how mindfulness is defined, that it's about living in the present non-judgmentally. I'm going to give you a slightly different approach to mindfulness. The world around us changes constantly. Some things change fast, some things change slowly, but things are changing. And as a result of everything changing, as human beings, we have to focus attention on that because we look for opportunities and we look for also things that are dangerous. So we have a lot of external focus in our minds. At the same time, we think that when we have thoughts, emotions, and sensations, that's an inner focus. In fact, it's not an inner focus. That is also an external focus. So all your thoughts, emotions, and sensations are still outside of you. All right, so what is it? What is it that doesn't change? There's one thing in our lives that doesn't change. It's with us 24/7, every moment of our lives. And that's the capacity to witness or to be aware of what's happening in our minds and outside of us. All right? This capacity is called the witness. The witness. So if we're from the witness perspective at a deep level, looking at the world, you could call that metacognition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an idea of how mindfulness happens or how mindfulness comes as a result of this. So for a moment, just focus on your breath. Breath comes in, breath goes out. Feel the breath coming out, the sounds, the movement in your chest as you breathe. Now, as you're focusing on the breath, turn a little bit of your attention inside. In other words, see if you can contact the witness, that sort of space that allows you to even focus on your breath. Now, this space for some people might be in the chest, other people it's in the head, other people in different parts of the body. This space has no qualities whatsoever. It's very silent. It doesn't have thoughts. Even the sense I, me, and mine is an external thought. So you're going back to a space that is the fundamental space for all of your experience. And the way to do that is just kind of turn your attention, part of your attention, backward. So in a way, what that is turning metacognition back on itself. And if you're able to do that, then you can live in the moment. You can live in the moment because no matter what's going on in your mind, no matter what's happening in your life, you're in that space. Part of you is in that space all the time. And that's the unchanging. That's where you get what is called absorption in a non-thought state. That's how it's done. That's mindfulness. That's not taught. It's not taught by, that I know of, by Thich Nhat Hanh and Kabat-Zinn and so forth. But in fact, that actually opens up a lot of things to us if we learn how to do that. It's a little bit tricky. It takes a bit of practice. So Suzuki said that basically in beginner's mind there are many possibilities. So what that is creating a beginner's mind. You don't have any things that are constraining you, right? As opposed to the expert's mind, which is how we're educated. We all have to become experts. That means there are a few possibilities and less possibilities in our lives. So there was done some work also in the United States about mindfulness effect on what's called cognitive rigidity. In other words, our inability to switch patterns, to be flexible mentally. And they discovered that after 6 weeks of training, that cognitive rigidity went down tremendously. So getting back once again into that neutral gear, that this type of mindfulness is very, very useful for that. So I do brain studies. I'm not going to bore you too much with the science. But anyway, over here, if you look at the red, that's at 8.5 cycles per second, the frequency. That means the person is very relaxed because the back of their head is red, means their eyes are closed, and the front part, they're just relaxed. Okay, so now here's someone who's solving very, very complex creative problems with many, many variables. Now look what happens. Almost the entire brain is even at a lower frequency, right? So that's the witness state. You're actually putting yourself in a witness state. And over here is even a deeper state. That's deep sleep. Over here, this is not deep sleep. This is like thinking. Now, if you look at meditation, meditation is very, very similar. Very similar profile. So the interesting thing about this is you're creating what's called coherence. Every single neuron is firing at the same frequency. Now, what does that do? That creates a type of stillness in the mind. And once you have this stillness, you can see more deeply. You can see more of those associations. You can free up your imagination, do lots of things that you normally couldn't do because of that stillness or coherence in the brain. And of course, this is very, very important, not only for performance in school, but very much for creativity to enhance these type of associations. So one of the ways that I teach mindful creativity is a workshop called Creative Contemplation. Now, creative contemplation is teaching students how to use their conscious mind to control the subconscious mind. Now, it's how to get results out of your subconscious mind. And the results of this is about a 3.5 hour workshop. But I've taken first-year design students, 17, 18 years old. At the end of this workshop, in a 15-minute exercise, they're able to create designs that fourth-year designers would do. Now, with the teachers are like, what? what are we going to do now? And there are lots of examples of that. So here I'm just showing a centering exercise. A centering exercise is another way to get into that default space, into that centered space. So how do we get creativity into Hong Kong education? Well, we use, remember, awareness, reward, and attention. We start off with reward. People aren't going to do anything unless you reward them, right? So how do we reward them? We show, oh, mindful creativity training adds value to academic performance. Well, is that bullshit? No. Sorry on my video. What it does, the creativity part enhances problem solving, being resourceful and so forth. The mindfulness part, enhances things like working memory, visual spatial reckoning. Kids are able to multitask more. They can process information faster, which is one of the characteristics of IQ, intellectual quotient. Executive function is your ability to make decisions, to make clear, valuable decisions, and also to reduce performance stress and anxiety, which is something that Hong Kong kids probably need a lot of. I know I had 2 children go through the system here. So once we reward them and they go, oh, hey, something happens. Look, I can go back to the parents. See, Johnny's doing great. That type of thing. So the second thing is they start focusing more attention on it. Oh, what's happening here? Why is this working? And then the third thing, once they focus more attention on it, then they become more aware of what really education is all about and the capacity for people to learn in a very, very natural way. It doesn't mean that you don't acquire knowledge. Of course you can acquire knowledge. You need to acquire knowledge. But there's so much more that happens here in terms of sense of well-being and social emotional competence, and a lot of things come out of this because it's fundamental. It's back to the most fundamental aspects of being a human being: awareness, attention, and reward. So I believe that's pretty much it. Can maybe try a few questions. Yes, the internet, mobile technologies allow us to connect, in parentheses. We can do all kinds of things. We can share files. We can share, our most intimate moments with other people, on Facebook and Omelette and whatever they are. But as you're doing this, busy doing all these different things, the real question is, who or what are we communicating with? We feel that we're communicating, but are we really communicating? Is connecting actually communication? Communication is much more complex than what you find in the digital world. If we, do a WhatsApp between each other and you say, yo, bro, what's up? And I say, not much. It doesn't seem like anything very interesting on WhatsApp. But if I'm doing that to you in front of your face with my body language, tone of voice and that, it's much more impactful. You get more out of it. It impacts you more. So if we lose that awareness, that sort of real connection with other people, then a number of things are going to suffer. It looks like we're expanding our world, but in fact what we're doing is we're contracting our world. Intellectually we're expanding it, but emotionally, spiritually, I guess you could call it, we're contracting our world. And so there has to be a balance. Technologies are great, they're efficient, you can do lots of things with them, but we need a balance in life, and somehow kids, have to learn what that balance is. We're running out of time? Okay. The problem is repetitiveness. There's an ancient saying that you don't step into the same stream twice. All right, so what looks like repetition to us, if you're really, really aware, is not repetition. Your brain is not the same. Your emotions are not the same. Every time you do the same thing over and over again, there are changes. So as you become more and more aware of what's happening, the changes that are occurring during this so-called repetitive exercise, then you're becoming more mindful. And you're actually enhancing creativity because it's so difficult to be creative when you're under constraints. But if suddenly you look at those constraints and you don't see them anymore, in other words, there's so many possibilities, there's so much happening at many, many different levels, and you can develop that, then your creativity will continue. You won't get burned out. What happens is the mind, we have a tendency to stereotype things, to filter. So in other words, if we're writing on a piece of paper, B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, after a while it's like, oh, it's just another B flat. But in fact, if you're more mindful of it, every single one of them is different, and your state of mind is different, second by second. So that's a way to get out of these ruts. Is you start to have gratitude for even things that look mundane and repetitive. You're making more associations. You're making associations that normally you wouldn't make. They would kind of go into repeat mode. Okay? Well, thank you very much, everyone. Enjoyed. You're a great audience.